Hey everyone, this is Mike. Apple has made a device you just can't ignore because honestly, it's the most unusual MacBook they've released in a long time. It's not an Air, not a Pro, but a separate model called the MacBook Neo. And the most important thing here isn't even the price, though that's pretty interesting too. The real highlight is the processor, because Apple went ahead and put the A18 Pro chip from the iPhone into this laptop. And this is where you want to pause and ask, is this a stroke of genius or just a really nicely packaged compromise? Because on one hand, everything looks super appealing. The new MacBook is light, metal, thin, comes in bright colors, and is relatively reasonably priced. But on the other hand, the more you look at the specs, the more you realize Apple is playing its favorite game again. Everything seems great, but here come the details. So today, let's try to figure out what exactly the MacBook Neo is and how it's different from the Air. How reasonable is the idea of a MacBook running on a mobile chip? And does it actually have a shot at becoming a truly popular MacBook? So make yourself comfortable and give this video a like. Let's get started. So what exactly is the MacBook Neo? It's the most affordable entry into the MacBook lineup. 13 inches, A18 Pro, 256 gigabytes of base storage, metal body, 2 USB-C ports. And overall, it doesn't look like a cheap computer, but like a full-fledged Apple device. And that's something Apple does perfectly. Even when they make a more affordable device, it still has to look like something that makes you feel, I bought an Apple product. It doesn't feel like a cheap laptop. It's more like a simplified MacBook. And that's a big difference. Apple has created a device that, in terms of appearance and basic experience, feels like a regular Mac, but lowers the price by cutting back on the internals and adding some limitations. Now let's talk about the most interesting thing in this laptop, the A18 Pro processor. The idea is actually pretty controversial, but that's exactly what makes it so interesting. Because historically, we associate the MacBook with M chips. These are real Apple silicon processors. They're powerful, cool, energy efficient, and have proven themselves to be excellent for a long time. And now Apple is saying, what if most people don't even need all that power? And there's some logic to that, because if you take away video editors, tech bloggers, designers, musicians, and everyone else who really pushes the M chips to their limits, you're left with a huge percentage of people who just use their laptops for everyday tasks. It's very predictable. Browser, documents, email, videos, video calls, social networks, messengers, spreadsheets, presentations, notes, watching videos, light studying, and work. For this kind of use, the A18 Pro chip is more than enough. This is the kind of processor for the world where you open your laptop, get something done, close it, and forget about it. So in everyday life, it's gonna feel really snappy. Moreover, when it comes to simple tasks, I'm pretty sure most people won't even realize they're using a laptop that's not from the M series. But as soon as you start doing heavy tasks, that's when the obvious difference with the M series shows up. I put it this way, the A18 Pro in a MacBook is actually not a bad idea. Apple is basically trying to sell you not power, but sufficiency. Not the maximum, but enough for most people. And here, the question isn't about the processor, it's about you. Do you even push your MacBook hard enough to really need an Air or a Pro? Because if not, then the Neo might actually be a perfectly reasonable option. So basically, the Air is almost a comfortable standard, while the Neo is a smart minimum. It's not the thinnest laptop in the world, but it's a simple, beautiful, straightforward MacBook for everyday tasks. And that's already a much more mature option. Looking at the bigger picture, the MacBook Neo is also interesting because it poses serious competition to Windows laptops. Let's be honest, things are pretty bleak in the budget segment over there, while here, Apple is coming in with a really strong argument. Sure, we don't have top-tier power, but what we do have is a solid, well-rounded product. So it's not just a list of specs. It's a full-fledged MacBook with a decent screen, a good trackpad, a metal body, solid sound, a stable operating system, a good battery, and seamless integration with all your other Apple devices. But let's be honest, the MacBook Neo doesn't look perfect because Apple, as usual, makes the device look attractive on the outside, but makes sure you remember it's the entry-level model. First off, it only has 8 gigabytes of RAM. Second, it comes with just 256 gigabytes of storage in the base model. For some people, that might be enough. Third, Touch ID is only available in the more expensive version. Fourth, the very fact that it doesn't have an M chip will bother a lot of people psychologically. Even if the laptop works well for everyday tasks, many will still think, maybe I should have saved up a bit more and gotten the Air. And that's a completely reasonable question. In my opinion, the MacBook Neo is a good fit for those who just want a decent entry-level laptop from Apple. To put it simply, I like the idea of the MacBook Neo because it's not trying to impress with power. It's an attempt to make the MacBook more mainstream. If the Neo actually turns out to be fast in everyday use, doesn't annoy users with limitations at every turn, and keeps that signature Apple feel, then it's got a really good shot. But at the same time, I can't say that having the A18 Pro in a laptop is something to be unconditionally excited about. I feel like it's still an experiment. An interesting and promising one, but still an experiment. Because it's one thing to see an iPhone chip in a presentation, and it's a whole different story how that chip will actually feel after a year, 2, or 3 of real-world use. And that's what really matters. Overall, the MacBook Neo right now looks like a very interesting product, but also one with a lot of compromises in some areas. It's not a revolution, not an Air killer, not a replacement for the Pro series, but potentially the most popular MacBook in recent years. And that's a pretty bold statement. Let me know in the comments what you think about the idea of a MacBook running on iPhone processors. Is it okay as long as everything works fast in real life? Or do you think a MacBook should only run on M chips? Would you buy the MacBook Neo for $599? Or would you rather pay extra for the Air? This was Mike with you. See you next time.